You're listening to Diva Tonight with Carlene Humphrey, a relationship podcast with a focus on life, love, and friendship. Welcome to Diva Tonight.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight. I have with me on Zoom Amanda Cassar.
Cassar.
Yeah. Okay. She is a financial advisor based in Australia's Gold Coast.
Have a cup of tea and a bicky at 10:30.
I love that. Oh my gosh. I wonder if you've watched that movie. This is such a side note, but the movie's called Adore. It's about these two grandmothers and they're best friends, and they end up, one of them has an affair with the other one's son, and
Okay, I'm putting that on the watch list.
Oh my God, I just did a side note.
My best friend doesn't have a son.
Oh my gosh.
I won't be corrupting her 10-year-old daughter.
Okay. So it's definitely not the same storyline, but if you ever get the chance to slow down and watch that movie, oh my goodness.
For sure.
Yeah, you make me feel like, talking to you, I feel like I'm there, even though I've actually never been to Australia, but,
put it on the list.
Yes, I will. So you have done a lot and you've traveled a lot. You know, what's interesting is that you've done a lot of community work, and I see that you've been to Uganda. What was that like?
Oh, I actually cried when I left Uganda. I think Africa gets under your skin. You know, there's big skies in Australia, but somehow they're bigger in Africa. The people were beautiful and welcoming. And, you know, it's not, I suppose, the safest place to be. We were quite protected. You know, there's a bunch of white ladies traveling around Uganda with the charity we were with. But it was, I suppose, the human spirit story of it. I was with a group that I guess the best way of putting it is they provide a hand up, not a hand out. So they were teaching people how to be better farmers, better shopkeepers, better in agriculture, better in their communities, how to step up in midwifery and make a better life instead of waiting to be rescued by an aid agency or the local elders or the tribe or the government. It was, well, it's always been this way for you guys. If something's going to change, maybe it has to be you. And, you know, when people go, you know what, I'm going to embrace that instead of going, no, I'm sitting around waiting to be rescued. Generation after generation. And to see those who stepped up, taken on the education, were now providing not only for their families, but their extended families, are giving back to their communities and becoming self-sufficient, and the pride and joy they had in sharing those stories. Just magic coming out of that. So yeah, saw that also in Malawi. But Uganda, I stayed back then and did the trek to the Silverback Mountains near the border of Congo and Rwanda as well. So that was magic also, to be with the Silverback gorillas. So yeah, look, what could you walk away and not love about Uganda?
Yeah. I mean, I know my sister's been, and I think she stayed for a week and then she was doing like volunteer work, but I guess it's the community that brings people together. And so that's the most beautiful thing, I guess, in part of the work that you're doing, because you've done a lot in the years that you've worked as a financial advisor, you know, starting off years ago, obviously. We started off in, is it 2015 or before that? Like way before that, right? So,
no, I've been an advisor since 2000, and I worked for an advisor for another 8 years or so before I became an advisor. So
okay.
Forever, since school, basically.
Yeah. So it's in your DNA, right?
Well, my dad was an insurance guy. And so I grew up hearing, you know, he worked from home. My mother wasn't always well. So I'd hear, you know, policies and premiums and all the jargon and the talk all my life. And I'd question him about it at the dinner table. What's a policy? What's a premium? What's a sum insured? What's it all mean? So yeah, it kind of was in the DNA. And then a friend of his had an opening. A girlfriend of mine was moving away to Sydney. He needed a new secretary. So Dad said, do you want to work for this guy who back then he was what we'd call a lifey, someone who sold life insurance and some retirement products. And so I started as his secretary at about 18, 19 after high school and bought him out in 2014. So had a lot of sweat equity in the business and building it up. So yeah, been around it forever.
Yeah. I guess they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And like, I think it's like that you were like, your parents are kind of like your role models. And so if you have good role models, then that kind of like shapes your path onto where you go in your career and your life, right? And so you wrote the book, and I realize from the conversations you've had with other entrepreneurs, it seems to be a recurring thing that being taught about money and how to manage money is not something that a lot of people learn at a young age. No.
And I think the reason is that their parents weren't taught, and their parents weren't taught, and their parents weren't taught. So we've got this intergenerational lack of knowledge. The education system fails us completely in this space as well. In most countries, financial literacy certainly isn't in the curriculum. We've got this Edwardian, system that's still been set up in most Commonwealth countries. So, lots has got to change to make a more practical, life-based skill set for people. So when you ask anybody, what'd you learn about money? The answer's first thing is nothing. And the second one's probably, money doesn't grow on trees. So, just there's a few cliches that families use. So, yeah. But there are lessons you pick up. If you look back, did your parents have a scarcity or an abundance mindset? And, if they grew up post-war to parents who'd been through the Depression or grandparents, they became hoarders. They did reduce, reuse, recycle. They didn't throw things away. They made do. They didn't live in a consumer society. We can go buy another T-shirt for $3 if you want to. They bought quality and it had to last, and they darned their socks and they sewed back on buttons where, we don't do that. It's like, I can get another $3 or $4. I'm just chuck it and off I go. So very different societies to grow up under, and also very hard, to be teaching someone about reduce, reuse, recycle when it's just like, come on, why am I going to do all that when I can just get something for nothing? So it's a throwaway society now. So even the lessons that may have been passed on aren't relevant. I know one of the ladies in the book told me that every time they drove past a lovely home, her parents would say, they must be pretty bad people in there. Only people who do the wrong thing can get ahead in life. So she grew up hearing that rich people were bad people. So, there's these lessons that we hear. And unless one day you stop and go, wait a second, is that true? Does that still serve me? Which often that self-awareness smack on the side of the head we get takes a bit longer than we'd probably like it to. But we don't often stop and have those conversations and go, actually have a thought about where my thoughts on money came from. Often spenders will marry savers, and there's massive conflict because money's like water and it flows through your hands and it's used like manure and it should make things grow. And others like, no, we've got to hold on to everything. The world could end tomorrow and I've got to have it all. And so, there's these very different ideas unless we examine where both of them came from. I mean, you might sit down with your partner and go, do you want to have kids? Yeah, I want to have kids too. Let's get married. What are your thoughts on money? What did your parents teach you about money? How do you feel? Do you spend? Do you save? Do you work towards goals? We don't have those discussions. The really, really important ones that are going to impact how we fund that kid. So, yeah.
Did you have those conversations with
God, no.
No. See,
no, we did discuss, do we have joint accounts or individual accounts? How soon should we combine our money? Is everything ours? And from very, very early, we decided that because that's what both our parents did. And when we're in our 30s, we went through this stage where I'm like, I'm not sure I like you so much anymore. I don't know if I want to come home to you still. And we separated everything. We've now been married 32 years, but we've kept that separation of assets. And it's something I also teach younger clients, that you need to keep that independence, having now seen so many vulnerable women controlled by other people who have no escape plan because they've given up all their own independence. It's a massive thing to talk about really, really early. Do you both keep your independence, keep your incomes, but then you go, look, I'll contribute. Is it going to be 50-50 to the bills? Is it actually you make twice as much as me? It'll be 2/3, 1/3. How are we going to fund our future lifestyle? What are the goals we're going to work towards? They're all big questions, and, they don't all need to be answered today, but they will come up in life. And communication is one of the hardest things to do with a partner. Go and ask somebody's girlfriends and she'll know all about what this guy's problems are, but she probably hasn't had the chat about the problems with the partner. So we really suck at discussing these things together.
It's true. I won't say that boyfriend's name, but when I lived with one of my boyfriends, we didn't talk about money, but like as much as we should. Like I knew, he always said because he made more money that he would pay like the rent and then I could pay whatever I could afford because I had just graduated university. So obviously I just started off and I had like this job in a call center, but I became like, you know, like you said, you become kind of like your parents. So like I was very like Snoopy trying to understand, like, you know, he has some savings and like he wanted me to watch the savings. But then when I did a little bit of digging, Amanda, I found out that he had student loans and like, you know, he went to teacher's college, but he hadn't been able to pay it because of what he was making when he started off as a teacher. And then you learn all these things. And I'm like, well, how are we going to go away if you have these student loans? Cause I'm like, there's one thing I learned with the government. When you have student loans with the government, that they will find the bank account that you have. And like, if it's linked to your account, they'll just go in and take out the amount without you knowing. Like, I'm not without you knowing, but like, if you don't call them to figure something out, that's what happens here in Canada. And so that did happen to him. And I did warn him because I think I'm not the best with money per se. I'm not very disciplined because of my own path, but I think I learned enough to know like, what are the repercussions if you don't, right? Like trying to settle things. So you're right. It is hard when you don't have the same ideas of money, but I think we eventually figured something out so that it could be better. Cause the one thing I can say is with him, we were able to travel. I think I was the first girlfriend to be like, okay, let's make a plan to go somewhere. Cause you know, you've never been anywhere before. So we were able to go to Florida. And then I think from that, he wanted to go other places too. But like you said, it's kind of like that discussion that nobody really wants to have in the relationship or bring it up, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but a vital one as well.
It is a vital one. So, you know, in my research, I've learned that, you know, a lot of discussions come up about money management, but the one thing that I think not a lot of us talk about, and I think you brought it up briefly, is the emotional side of money and how that affects us in the long run in terms of like planning a budget and like just your emotional connection to it or what it does for you. Cause I think as a woman, like you know, when you're depressed or when you had a bad day, you go and buy something and you feel like that instant gratification, right?
The dopamine hit. Yep.
Yeah. So what's your advice in terms of tackling that? Right?
I think again, it's the taking that time out to have a review. What do I do when I'm, you know, either in a mood or if I'm not feeling great? You know, do I eat comfort food when I've got the miseries? If, you know, I've had a bad day, what are our, you know, self-sabotaging habits? And most of them are linked to money. Usually if we've got the miseries, we're not going to go, that's it, I'm running off to the gym, I'm going to do a workout. You know? I mean, some people do, absolutely, it is their go-to, but, you know, for most of us, it's sitting there with a pint of ice cream in front of some movies or ordering a pizza or, you know, that new handbag or the shoes because suddenly we deserve them because we're miserable. So I think examining what's my go-to when I'm not feeling the best. You know, and it could have even started as, you know, a reward system. You know, there was a little boy who was in my life for a while who, oh, you've been a good boy, I'm buying you McDonald's was his grandmother's go-to. Yeah. So he ended up connecting good behavior with junk food, and his father had a terrible weight problem because it had been perpetuated, you know, now into the second generation. So identifying those, I suppose, triggers for us personally, you know, it might be, you know, the latest top or the latest handbag or the latest shoes or comfort food, whatever it is. I think being able to go, oh, that's my downfall. Now that I'm aware of that, what am I going to do? Am I going to go and grab the handbag, or am I going to go, you know what, I'm going to wait 24 hours, see if the mood lifts, throw the credit card in the freezer in a block of ice, make sure I can't get to it. I mean, hey, I know you can tap your phone now, but that's an old-fashioned way. So what am I going to actively do to manage that? Is there something I can distract myself with? Should I go for a run? Should I read a book? Should I, you know, what else can I do to lift my mood? Could I journal? Could I listen to music? Could I watch my favorite movie? You know, if I see The Princess Bride one more time, I'm still going to be in love with it tomorrow. So I'm going to watch that again. Whatever it is that we could do to go, that habit's got to change. But we need to replace it with something, because we're not very good at just going, oh, I recognize that now, moving right along. It's like when you smoke. It's for a lot of people, it's like, I just need that something between my fingers, or I need to be able to go outside and do something. It's often the activity more than the hit, perhaps. So, okay, well, will I go and have a cup of coffee? Will I go for a walk? What will I do to take my mind off it? But look, if you can just recognize it and go, oh, there it is again. I know when I'm starting to feel depressed, I get this feeling like something really bad's going to happen. Things are getting out of control, or things have been going really good. They can't stay that way. I think something, and I'm like, okay, the black dog's out to get me. What can I do to change my mood so that doesn't continue? I know it's now one of my earliest signs of I'm a bit under the weather. Things are getting on top of me. I don't want to spiral. What can I do instead? So I think it's that self-awareness and just knowing in our own mind what our triggers are, and then going, well, what can I do instead?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because before our conversation, I listened to a podcast, and in the new year, it's always about planning ahead. Like, we're going to make goals for the new year. And a lot of conversations stem from money. And I was listening to the Greatness podcast. I forgot the host's name, but he was saying that in every stage of life, I think you need to be broke before you can figure out, like, when you're really broke and you're down and out, that's when things start to be more clear in your mind. And when you're down and out, that's when you're forced to make changes, right? Drastic changes, because you don't have money, you don't have the resources, you can't do the things that you want to do, right? And
there's a great speaker in the US, name's Dan Clark. He's a Hall of Fame speaker, and he calls that place, instead of being rock bottom, whereas like we've hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. He calls it rock foundation, because it is the foundation of what we build next. And it sounds so much more like a starting place than rock bottom, because you sort of think, that's it, I've bottomed out. I guess I can only go up, but I'm going to wallow here for a bit. But when it's a foundation, the first thing you think of is, what am I going to build on this? So it is that, can I start a tower now? Can I just put a little cottage, whatever it's going to be? So it's a really brilliant place to start. And some people have told me, one of the guys in my book, when I was interviewing him about money, he was an Australian forensic cop who'd just been serving after the tsunami in Bali that hit, I think it was Boxing Day 2005. It's about 2004. It's about 20 something years ago. Banda Aceh. 200,000 people died. And one of his jobs was to repatriate the bodies back, and he'd fly back to Australia, and his marriage was over, and he was living out of his suitcase in a car. And he started one of the most beautiful charities in the world called Hands Across the Water to help the orphan children from that moment when he was at rock bottom. So, beautiful things can happen when we're down in that place.
Yeah. No, I feel like I'm not totally rock bottom, but I'm definitely having to, what do you call it? Start
the scramble.
Yeah, I have to
swim upstream.
Water right now. You know what I mean? It's like I got myself here. You know what I mean? And then I'm one of those people that I'm very resourceful, and I think as a survivor of many things, Amanda, I think when you are resilient and you've been through so much, you're like, okay, I got to figure out a way. What am I going to sell? I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell, you know what I mean? Like,
that gorgeous swan, everything looks beautiful on the surface and your little leggies are going underneath.
Exactly. Right? Like, I think if you have a community of people who are willing to help you, I realize it more than ever. Like, my sisters are, having those people in your life to help you when you need that lifeboat is the starting point, but obviously planning ahead. And so you said in your book, so the book is Financial Secrets Revealed. You've done a lot of research, and like the one thing I guess is the power of financial education, right? And you have the backing, you have a master's in, financial, am I wrong? Wait. I know you have a master's, but
Master of Financial Planning. Yeah.
Yes, I was correct with that. Yeah. And so, I mean, with that background, what do you feel that it taught you? That was the most important thing.
There's a part of me that thinks an educational background in money it's very academic. It's focused on this is how bonds work and this is how investment markets work. And there's market cycles and things go up and down. And you sort of sit there and do all that stuff. And it's probably more the psychological side of money that's not touched on. Maybe it's more behavioral finance that I needed to look into for financial advice, where how people react around money and they don't even understand why they have those responses. It's probably much more important than understanding that, markets go up and down, that, this is how to invest in a share and what's a PE ratio. I think that's all quite academic when it comes to living and breathing and dealing with money. So I think, sitting down and having those conversations, maybe even sit there with ChatGPT and go, I don't even know what to ask myself about money. How can I start learning my money personality or my profile or my pitfalls? We've got these tools and technologies that are, pretty much free and can help us now. Why not take advantage of them? Or ask your best friends. They know what you like. They might not tell you. But if you sit there and go, look, I'm really trying to improve. Have you noticed when I'm down, what are my habits? When we go out, is there someone who's always reluctant to pay their share? Is there someone who's always big tipping, I'll get today? What's my style? Am I more reluctant or so? And then having a think about, okay, well, that's how they see me. Are you the tight ass friend or the generous friend? Which one are you? And then sitting down and going, oh, I wonder, please take it as feedback, not criticism. You asked. So why do I feel that way? What stories are coming up for me? What did I see? I've had people very impacted. They remember being an 8-year-old kid looking out the window and seeing their father's car towed, then finding out about bankruptcy, and just in that moment as a child going, this will never happen to me. And just, from that moment striving to be the most successful person in the world so that their car or their possessions would never be taken away. So it may be as something as simple as like, I didn't realize in that moment that I'd made that decision, or, those things that impact us so long term. What are some of those stories that come up? What are the top 3 things you remember from your childhood about your parents and money? Or maybe nothing comes up, or you need to sit and think about it for a while before those stories come up, and then sort of have a think, again, do the lessons I think I took from that actually still work? I mean, they were made with a brain that wasn't probably as well formed and educated as it is now. So we need to ask if those stories still serve us.
Diva Tonight, glamour for your ears.
Yeah. In all the self-improvement work I've done, I feel like if there's something that still triggers you, it's unresolved. Like I remember just not too long ago doing a workshop, and I'm like, wow, I clearly have still have some triggers, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, wow, I definitely need to work on that, because it's not only the triggers of the childhood, but the triggers in your mind. Your mind is like, plays an important thing to like the negative self-talk, and like, oh, you're like, I think it's always striving to be perfect, but there's no such thing. And so it all starts with you, right? And so when you sit down with your clients, though, I think the one thing I want to ask is like, what are the things that people should start tracking going forward if they haven't started with a budget? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think a lot of people get probably hung up on the word budget. It's boring. Your eyes roll backwards. It seems like a chore. I think viewing budgets, whether you want to call it a spending plan or whatever you want to call it, it's an empowerment tool. Because if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know that it costs you $479 a week or $3,246 a fortnight or whatever your number is to get up, eat every day, put a roof over your head, make sure there's clothes in the cupboard, that your kids can go to school. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to know, do I have anything left or am I going further into the hole? And I think because that's kind of confronting, people don't want to do it. But when you know the answer to that and break it down per pay packet, just if you just had to live and nothing else, you never went on a holiday, there were no treats, what's it cost me just to live? If you know that number, and then you can work out, people use, oh, well, I don't know what I'm going to make each week. I'm in a gig economy, or I get commissions. I don't care. Know what it costs to live, because then when you do have income come in, it's like, is it going to be enough or isn't it? Because if it is going to be enough, then you have choice. You have power. Where am I going to put the rest of it? Do I want to treat? Do I want to put it towards a holiday? Do I want to bring down debt? Do I want to start investing? Do I want to take time off down the track to have children or a family or whatever it may be? that gives you power. And I think understanding that, and then you can do your goal setting. It's so much easier to say no to the handbag, the shoes, the ciggies, if you've got something to work to. And all of a sudden, if it's like, well, actually, we don't make enough, we are going backwards each week, which I didn't realise, something's got to give. And it could be, right, we have to lose one or two of the streaming services. We can't go out on Friday night for takeaway anymore. And look, these could be temporary things, or I actually do need to ask for that pay rise that I've been putting off for 1 or 2 years. Or maybe I need to stack shelves at night to get us out of the hole. But it gives you the power to make the decision. Can I sell off the old golf clubs that I'm not using anymore to finish those payments? Whatever it may be, it gives us the power and control back over our lives instead of just going, I can't do it because I'm so stuck and I don't want to know the answer. Knowing the answer, know the truth, it'll set you free. I'm going to borrow that from a really good book.
Another cliche saying, Amanda. Come on.
Yeah, it's not mine, all right?
I know, but I love those quotes because it's so true. I say them to myself all the time. It's like when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. You know what I mean? Like, come on,
Yeah. But, I mean, it's boring, and it's, there's no magic silver bullet, and you do have to do the work, and, it takes time, and, but at least you can start uncovering your options then.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to do it, again, throw your bank statements into ChatGPT and say, what am I doing wrong? Where am I overspending? Put this into a budget for me that I can look at. What's my average grocery spend? We've got the tools to help, and we don't have to think so hard about this anymore. Where can you see that I can improve? What could I cut back on? Nothing's secret anymore. They're all out. Throw 12 months of statements in and go, tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah. I know, because you're in Australia. I mean, you obviously help more, like your clients are in Australia, but I think at the end of the day, money is money. We all need to figure it out to survive, because things are changing in the economy, in the world, like especially with things that are happening right now in the US and Canada. And, the one thing I think is important to bring up is what to do if your hours have been reduced, if you're dealing with cutbacks and, looking for another job to supplement your income. Like, how do you plan for that and to keep it going? Like, keep the plan going, like, what do you tell your clients?
I think if you're planning for it, if you think it might be on the horizon, I think the first thing you have to do is what used to be called good old fashioned housekeeping and tightening the belt. It's again, boring and hard, but it might mean you don't have salmon this week. You might have tuna, like tin tuna. You might not be eating the more exotic cuts of meat. You're not buying the tomahawk steak. You might just have to buy mince. It can be little things like that. If there's big, if you've got 3, 4 or 5 streaming services, maybe you don't need Spotify for a few months. Maybe you can do, you'll just have Netflix and not Stan and Disney and all the others. So there can be very simple things to cut back, and it's surprising how quickly some of those add up. I even knew another financial advisor who had 2 Netflix plans and he didn't even know he had the second one, like signed up under 2 different email addresses. Like, it's so easy to do. So that old fashioned style of housekeeping will go, you know what, we are only going to spend 100 a week, 200 a week, 300, whatever it is on groceries with this week. And if that runs out, you know what? There are those things in the back of the freezer we haven't thought of. There is that tub of pasta in the cupboard. Let's get creative. Let's, work out, okay, I've got these ingredients. How can I make it work? It can be a bit of fun, a bit of a challenge, instead of, oh my God, I've run out of everything I want to eat and it's easy. How do I make things last? How do I, can I get more out of each meal? How do I make it go further? Do I add, more basic veggies, or, it's boring. And, there's so many sites out there now on how to live frugal lives. Can you grow your herbs in the backyard? Can you, get a tomato plant and a lettuce when the weather's good? So, there's places to turn when you don't know where to turn. So you just have to ask the right questions.
Yeah. And I think it's about like that pride. Like, if you have to use the food bank, or if you have to, find other resources to help you in those tough times, I think people shy away from that, but sometimes you do what you have to do to get back.
Look, if there's friends going through similar things, maybe you sit together and do resources. Well, you're much better at this. I can do the school run if you'd like to do that, and you help each other out. Like, there's you can do a bit of a collective or a cooperative. Those sort of like, I'll make the spaghetti. I'm brilliant at that. Someone else will do a different dinner that, you got the casserole going. So you can go, well, I'll make 5 of these for your family and 5 for mine. And if you can do there's little innovative things you can do. Others might know about, discounts that are available. Like you said, the food bank or vouchers. I've got a client who's still, she does have a good job and 2 kids, but life is still a struggle for her. She does have to go and get, a food parcel once a fortnight for the basics. So you do what it takes. If you can't shop at your favourite shop anymore and you have to go to it's a local Kmart or Coles for us, then, if you have to get your shoes from there for a little while, then okay, do what's practical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Working out what's really important. Is a beautifully home-cooked meal with my family way more important than spending $200 or $300 at a local restaurant and getting poor quality, non-nutritious food when what if the kids help me? What if they could peel a carrot or a zucchini and we can all put this into a great big savoury mince or whatever it is? What would be more fun? Is that at home and a movie night, or is popcorn and movies at home more fun than taking 5 kids and family and all that out to the movies and spending a fortune when your credit card's already bursting? Maybe the kids come up with the movie this week, or you turn the couch into, a hut, and you put blankets and you make it a sleep out in the lounge room. So how can we come up with these fun things to do that aren't going to break the bank when the bank's probably close to broken? So there's still fun stuff. I mean, they board game nights. I mean, they used to be a thing. So bring out the old Monopoly or the Scrabble, whatever it is. There's still ways to, and I think because of social media, we're losing that human connection because we all just sit on the couch, play on our phones. There's something going in the background till we fall asleep. Say we've watched, the entire series when we were probably, playing Candy Crush instead. That's our lives. How do we put all that away and reconnect and look people in the eyes and love them again? So it's getting back to that basic stuff, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Actually, you know what? Over the holidays, my sister and her in-laws, they're very good with that. Like the games, because the kids are so young, right? And so we always play some game. Like my sister-in-law, she's always good with coming up with, she has games in the back of her mind, so she always plans something. And I think that's what makes it fun whenever we get together, like you said, to do those fun family game nights and getting back to the things that we used to do, right?
I think if you look back and go, what were the, 3 highlights of my childhood? Yeah. Unless it was probably going to Disneyland, there's probably not a lot that involved a lot of money. It was probably that ridiculous camping holiday where everything went wrong and it rained and you got stuck in the tent and, you're playing with torches, or, it was the silly stuff that made the difference and it sticks out, not the thousands and thousands of dollars that were spent somewhere, and somebody had a tantrum and it all ended in tears. So because it does.
It's true though. Yes, it is. As someone who's the oldest of 5 girls, I totally get that. I'm just like, I think back, but the one thing I think I want to ask you is because you do have a family and you run a family business, because you've traveled quite a bit. How do we plan for this year if we want to travel? Like, what are the steps to get there,
Okay. First step is always do your research, jump onto a Webjet or a comparison site or something and go what's it going to cost us? Are we going to fly economy, premium or business? What's the go? How much is it going to cost in airfares for this time to get there? How many people? Are we going to stay in, an Airbnb, a 4-star hotel, or are we going to go a little cabin? What's our budget? And go, okay, this whole holiday is going to cost $5,000, $10,000, whatever it's going to be. We want to go for 2 weeks at Christmas. We're going to budget for $200 a day spending money. So what's that on top? So I think working out, okay, we need $14,000 at Christmas this year to do the holiday we want. And then we break that down. We've got, 20 pay packets left before we go, $14,000. Is there any possible way I can put away $800 a pay packet? Probably not. So we've got a couple of choices to make. Is that still the holiday we're going to have at that time and go into debt for it? Or we go, you know what? Let's work really hard and we'll do it Christmas the following year. Maybe we'll just do a little camping trip this year, or we'll have a staycation, or we'll go away for a nice long weekend. Because I think if we do the homework and do the numbers, we can either go, that's completely affordable and totally in my budget and I'm really looking forward to it and I'm going to start putting. So I have a constant debit when my pay comes in each week that I put $100 a week straight onto my travel money card in US dollars.
Oh,
so
wow.
Then it doesn't matter if the US dollar is strong or weak. I'm what they call dollar cost averaging. So I'm always putting money aside so that when I want to go, hopefully my, 5,000 Australian will probably be only worth 2 or 3 American, but I've got some spending money when I go so that if I have to book, and I can turn that into whether it's UK money or Vietnamese dong or whatever it may be. I've got money sitting there always because I travel all the time that I can convert into a local currency. I can even leave it in Australian dollars till I'm ready to go. But for me, that's just something that's built into my budget. I put $100 a week Australian away for spending money when I travel anywhere because it's private spending usually. If it's work spending, I've obviously got to work hard for that. So travel, because it's such a big part of my life, it's part of my budget. So I actually, include it every week. My husband would love to go and do all the Christmas markets in Europe. That's going to be a lot dearer because the euro to the Australian dollar is pretty harsh. It's about half. So, what would cost, 5,000 euro is nearly 10,000 Aussie. So, can I do that this Christmas? Probably not. Could I do it the next one? Probably. So, okay, if I need to now put $500 a month away between hubby and I, is that more affordable? Okay, 125 a week between us, we probably can. That's doable. So when you break it down into, and do it per pay packet, if you get paid fortnightly or monthly, break it down into that and see if it's affordable. And if not, you're going to have to do the trade-offs. Okay, maybe it does mean flying a budget airline. Maybe it does mean a backpack and no underneath luggage. Maybe it does mean staying in a place. But you know what? If the experience of what you're going there for, if you love hiking, does it really matter how you got there? Did anyone see you get off, business class or first class? If you're only going to be, running up and down mountains and getting grubby, if that's your thing, probably doesn't matter. I mean, could you catch a bus? I don't know. But what are you prepared to do for the experience? Or is it things you want to do? Like, do you want stuff? Every holiday is different for someone. Maybe, going to Europe to buy leather handbags is the best thing you've ever thought of. For other people, it might be climbing a mountain, or I want to go dog sledding in the Arctic at some stage. That's a bucket list. I haven't seen the Northern Lights, so I'd love to do that. That's a big one for down the track, not on the radar at the moment. But, there's those kind of bucket list items. And there's, I've got conferences to go to overseas this year that I do, even for the business. The business puts money aside for those as well. So making it part of your budget and lifestyle. And you can't do that if you don't know what you're spending. If you don't know if you're even making ends meet right now, you don't know if you can put that extra $100 away towards your spending money. So once you've got that control, it makes it so much easier to go, oh, that's totally doable. We can take the kids to Disneyland. I have peaked as a parent. There's nothing more I can do. My job is done. So whatever it may be for your family, that's the way to approach it. Once you've got your handle on your money, if it's going to be part of the plan or not.
Yeah, that's a lot of food for thought. Definitely you broke it down. So where is your next trip? Do you have one already planned?
Oh, I just got back from Vietnam, Cambodia and Laos at Christmas. So I did 3 little countries in Southeast Asia. That was kind of cool. I'd love to go to Laos again. Laos, it's an incredible country, very untouristed, very laid back. I found Hanoi in Vietnam was just overwhelming. It was really busy, really noisy, really polluted, really packed. So many beautiful places, so many crazy places. So all the best parts of travel, basically. My husband always gets a stomach bug. That's always fun. So,
oh no. Is it the water? What is it? Is it the food?
Who knows? It's just a 24-hour thing he always gets on a holiday. So I did have a day without him. I will be heading back to the States later this year, probably California, for a conference in October. I've got a conference in Sydney. I have to go to New Zealand, Queenstown in March, one of the most beautiful places ever. So that's kind of cool. I try and add a new country every year, which I've ticked that box now that I added Cambodia and Laos this year. So I put the little pins in my map that you might be able to see behind me.
Yeah.
But I haven't planned a new country yet. So I've also got 2 little grandbabies, so I don't like to be away from them for too long. They're only 1 and 2 at the moment. So they're all sort of trips.
Wow. Busy mom, grandmom. And, this is an audio podcast first. So if you're listening, Amanda has a lovely backdrop with Brazil, southern,
It's a map of the world, actually.
It's a map of the world. We can't see the whole world, but from what I see right now, it's Brazil, South America, which is beautiful too. And so with that being said, you are a financial planner. And, I think even when you're working on the budget on your own, it's always good to have someone giving you advice and giving you a help for those moments where you need to be accountable and someone to help you stay on track. So if they want to find you, you are on all the things, right? You're on LinkedIn, You're on Instagram. And how can we find you?
So LinkedIn, Amanda Cassar. I am the Australian financial advisor, not the American yoga instructor. So you will notice a difference when you look at our profiles. I do have amandacassar.com.au. So I got the website too. Probably LinkedIn's the easiest, but you just said something really important, Carleen. I think the accountability buddy is really vital. If you've got a friend and you can it's like going to the gym. You've got no motivation if your friend's not going and you want to go together. Money's the same. If you want to get a handle on your money and your finances and you and your friend are always moaning that you can't afford another cocktail or, you can only get one cup of tea this week or coffee with them, sit there and do it together. Go, okay, did you stay on budget this week? Oh, no, Damon lost his shoes, whatever it is, you've got someone you can sit there and talk to. I've got a couple of people who do pay me to help me manage their budget. I put them on a little retainer for 12 months until they're on track to help. So, maybe do that with a friend. You don't have to pay unless you're serious, but, if they're prepared to do it with you, it's a great idea to have that accountability.
Yeah. Actually, I have a friend who's really frugal that way. I used to get so annoyed with him, Amanda, and be like, Colin, I remember one trip we went away on and I was like, we're taking the bus around, but there's a method to his madness. I mean, he's been able to travel so much because of it, but he played the points game, with your credit cards and always collecting the points, and he still does it now. So he really is good that way. So yeah, like you said, having someone to help you stay accountable, I think that's what helped me stay. And now I've fallen off the path. So, which is really important. But I thank you so much for sharing all the things. There's so much to learn about money and you've given me some food for thought. So definitely something to think about. Yeah. Yes, of course. You've done your mark for, the start of the day.
Brilliant.
For sure. It is
cold coffee.
Yes, of course. You can have your coffee now. So if you want to support Amanda Cassar and get her book, it's called Financial Secrets Revealed, and it's on Amazon and a few other sites as well.
Barnes & Noble, Booktopia. Yep.
Yeah. But thank you again. So I'm Carleen, and this is Diva Tonight with Amanda Cassar.
Thanks for listening to Diva Tonight. Follow us on Instagram at Diva on the Radio. That's Diva with 2 I's. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok at Diva on the Radio for more clips and conversations you'll love. Want to share your thoughts or send us a message? Text us anytime at divatonight.buzzsprout.com. Until next time, stay fabulous.